Dear Chosen One, there's something deeply comforting about being in the presence of a Chosen One. Their spirit radiates peace. Their smile calms storms. Their silence speaks volumes. They are naturally empathic, fiercely loving, and unapologetically generous. They walk into your life like a gentle breeze and offer you safety, warmth, and a sense of being seen. But here's the part most people overlook. Even the calmest ocean can turn into a devastating tsunami if you disturb its depth long enough. Chosen Ones are not just spiritual, they are spiritually armed. Their niceness isn't naivety, it's discipline. Their patience isn't weakness, it's strength under control. And when they are betrayed, pushed too far, or spiritually threatened, something ancient and divine awakens inside them. A storm, a divine fire, a roar that shakes foundations. Before we dive deeper, we want to take a sacred moment to thank every single soul who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity helps this channel continue to bring forward truth, clarity, and healing for others walking the chosen path. Whether you've donated or not, your presence here is deeply appreciated. Just by being here, by receiving this message, by engaging with your spirit, you are making this sacred space stronger. We are grateful for you. Today, we're diving deep into the 8 powerful reasons why Chosen Ones may be the kindest souls you'll meet, but also the most dangerous when provoked. And if this message has reached you at a sacred moment, that's not a coincidence, it's divine timing. You're meant to hear this today. So if it resonates with you on a soul level, type 999 in the comments section to unlock divine blessings. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another spiritually guided message created specifically for you, the Chosen One. Now, let's get into it. God's Chosen Ones. 8 reasons why you're the kindest people, but the most dangerous when provoked. 1. They carry a healing energy, but that light can burn. Have you ever noticed how people are drawn to you without knowing why? How they come close and somehow feel safer, more understood, even when you haven't said a word? This isn't coincidence. This isn't just about having a warm personality or a gentle smile. It's because, Chosen One, you carry a frequency the world rarely encounters, an energy that heals, that restores, and that illuminates. You don't just walk into a room, you shift the atmosphere. You don't just listen to others, your spirit reaches into their unspoken pain and begins mending it. But have you ever wondered why, despite all this kindness and light, some people still reject you, fear you, or even try to hurt you? It's because your healing energy isn't passive. It's not just a soft glow, it's a divine fire. Your light doesn't only comfort the wounded, it confronts the hidden. The very same light that makes the broken feel safe can make the deceptive feel exposed. The peace you bring is powerful, but it's also disruptive to anything built on lies, ego, or darkness. And this is what many people fail to understand. They mistake your kindness for softness, your silence for weakness. But they have no idea what lies beneath, the fire of God that moves through you with purpose. Chosen One, your presence is medicine. People can't explain why they feel lighter after talking to you. They don't know why they cry when they're near you, why they feel safe unraveling decades of pain in a single conversation. That's not by accident. That's your anointing. Isaiah 61:1 describes you perfectly. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. You are a divine vessel walking the earth, assigned to bring restoration in a world that profits from pain. But here's the part most don't see. Restoration requires revealing. Healing requires exposure. And light, by its very nature, cannot help but reveal what has been hidden. That's why your energy feels like love to some and danger to others. You may have noticed that certain people adore you in the beginning. They say things like, "You have such a calming presence," or "I feel like I've known you forever." But slowly, something shifts. They pull away. Their tone becomes colder. You haven't changed, but they have. Why? Because the more time they spend around your light, the harder it becomes for them to wear their masks. The truth you carry doesn't have to be spoken. It radiates. And as John 3:20 tells us, everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. You didn't come to judge them. You didn't come to shame them. But the light in you judges every lie they've built their identity upon. And some people aren't ready to face that. Look at the life of Harriet Tubman. She wasn't just a liberator of bodies, she was a liberator of spirits. Known for her mystical visions and her divine intuition, Tubman led over 70 people to freedom without ever being caught. Those who followed her often said they could feel something supernatural about her. Her presence offered hope, direction, and deliverance. But to the slave masters, her presence was a threat, a danger to their control. The same woman who was a healer to the oppressed was a firestorm to the oppressors. That's who you are. To the brokenhearted, you are safety, but to those clinging to falsehood, you are a spiritual alarm they can't silence. Have you ever wondered why people sometimes project strange emotions onto you? Why they suddenly accuse you of things that make no sense, or treat you like you're the problem when you've done nothing but show them love? That's because your light is a mirror. And when people look into it, they see not only your purity, but their own distortions. Your integrity shows them their compromise. Your peace reveals their chaos. Psalm 119, 105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." When you walk in a room, you bring that lamp with you. And those who are stumbling don't always appreciate being shown the truth of where they are. Nina Simone, the legendary singer and activist, once said, "An artist's duty is to reflect the times in which we live." But what she really did was reflect the soul of the world. Her voice wasn't just music, it was revelation. It exposed injustice, pain, hypocrisy. She sang truth, and truth made people uncomfortable. She was labeled difficult, angry, too much. But what she really was light. Her energy healed some and confronted others. And just like you, she didn't have to say much for people to feel it. You carry that same fire, chosen one. Not everyone will welcome it, but it was never meant for everyone. This is why you often find yourself misunderstood. Why people love your gentleness until your truth comes too close. They think they want your peace, but when it starts to challenge their illusions, they resist it. That's when they call you judgmental, too intense, or even arrogant. They believe your silence is passive, not realizing that your restraint is mercy. You see their soul, you feel their inner world. You could speak what you see, but often you don't. That's not weakness, that's divine discipline. But if they keep pushing, if they cross the boundaries God placed around your spirit, they'll see a different side. Because when your healing energy turns inward, when your light begins purging what no longer belongs in your life, it doesn't just expose, it expels. Jeremiah 23:29 asks, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces?" That's what you carry, not a flicker of niceness, but the fire of truth wrapped in mercy. And when that fire starts to burn away manipulation, lies, and spiritual interference, nothing false can survive. Look at the story of Chadwick Boseman. The world knew him as Black Panther, but those close to him knew him as something even more powerful. A man of quiet depth and divine clarity. While battling cancer in silence, he delivered performances that changed lives. People said he had a presence that felt holy, even mystical. Without trying, he awakened others. He moved with a light that was both comforting and convicting. After his death, many shared that his presence made them want to be better people, not because he lectured them, but because his spirit revealed their potential and their shortcomings simultaneously. That's what you do. Just by being you, you awaken people to what they could be, but also what they've avoided becoming. And that's why some people don't stay. Not because you failed them, but because their ego couldn't survive in your presence. You see, the world teaches that healing should feel good, but you know better. True healing is a process. Sometimes it's tender, but other times it feels like a wound being reopened so the infection can finally drain. You are that sacred disruption, and while people may thank you for it later, they often fight you during it. So what do you do, chosen one? Do you dim your light to make others feel less exposed? Do you water down your truth to preserve shallow connections? You let them squirm. You let them walk away. You let the fire do what it was sent to do, refine. Romans 12:2 reminds us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Your energy transforms everything it touches, and those who are ready will embrace it. Those who are not will resist it. But you don't exist to be accepted, you exist to activate. So let them be uncomfortable, let them whisper, let them stare. Your healing is holy, your fire is sacred, and the world will either rise to meet it or run from it. But either way, your light remains. Unapologetic, undeniable, unstoppable. Because you, chosen one, are the medicine and the mirror. You are the balm and the blaze. And when provoked, you don't just defend, you cleanse, you purify, you set the entire atmosphere on fire, and nothing false can survive that. 2. Their patience isn't endless, it's purposeful. How many times have you held your tongue when every part of you wanted to speak? How often have you sat in silence, fully aware of the betrayal, the manipulation, the falsehoods swirling around you, yet you chose not to react? Not because you didn't see it, not because you didn't care, but because you knew something deeper was at play. That, chosen one, is not weakness. That is divine discipline. Your patience isn't passive, it's prophetic. People often misunderstand you. They mistake your stillness for submission, your delay for doubt, and your kindness for ignorance. They assume they're outsmarting you, that their schemes are working because you haven't spoken up or fought back. What they don't know is that your patience is never without purpose. It is never rooted in fear. It's a waiting born of wisdom. Like a watchman on the wall, you are discerning every move, listening to heaven before making a sound. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says, "There is a time to be silent and a time to speak." You know this. You live this. You wait because the timing of God is never rushed, and neither are you. People forget that even Jesus waited. He knew Judas would betray him long before the Last Supper, yet he shared bread with him anyway. He didn't expose him prematurely. He allowed Judas the time and space to choose differently. That's what you do, chosen one. You give people space. You allow grace to do its work. You wait even when you could destroy their lives with one sentence, one truth, one revelation. You hold the weight of what you know with sacred restraint because your spirit is aligned with a higher wisdom. But let's be clear, your patience is not endless. There is a point where mercy pauses and truth moves. When the spiritual scales tip, you shift, and that shift is never small. It's not loud, but it's seismic. When you finally speak, it's with clarity that cuts. When you move, it's with the power of divine justice behind you. And when you walk away, it's not out of bitterness, but because the season of waiting has ended. The spiritual window for repentance has closed. Have you noticed how people start scrambling once you begin withdrawing? How suddenly they act confused, as if they don't understand why your energy changed. That's because they got comfortable with your grace. They abused your silence, thinking it would last forever. But just like the flood in Noah's day, when the rains began, the ark door had already been sealed. Your silence is the warning. Your shift is the flood. Look at the story of Nelson Mandela. Before he became president of South Africa, he spent 27 years in prison. During that time, many mocked him, believed his voice had been silenced, that he was done. But he waited, not in despair, but with strategy. And when the time came, he didn't return with revenge. He returned with power, with precision, with purpose. His patience birthed transformation for a nation. You carry that same power. You're not waiting for vengeance. You're waiting for alignment. And alignment always comes, because God always vindicates the chosen. Have you ever felt the fire building inside of you while you remained externally calm? That tension isn't contradiction, it's confirmation. It's the stillness before the spiritual thunder. People think they've figured you out. They think you're just too nice to ever speak up, too humble to ever confront them. What they fail to realize is that you're operating on divine intelligence. You don't fight on impulse. You move on instruction. Proverbs 19:11 reminds us, "A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense." But overlooking an offense is not the same as ignoring it. It's choosing when to address it and how. And when you do, chosen one, it's with precision. You don't lash out, you launch. Your words don't just cut, they cleanse. Your actions don't just respond, they realign. Take Princess Diana, for example. She was criticized, betrayed, manipulated by institutions that should have protected her. And for the longest time, she stayed quiet. Not because she didn't know what was happening, but because she was protecting her children, her dignity, and her truth. When she finally spoke, it shook the world. She didn't scream, she revealed. Her restraint made her dangerous, not because she was silent, but because when she did speak, people listened. They felt the truth. That's your power too. You are not weak, you are watching. You've been giving people time to come clean, to confess, to realign. And when they don't, when they keep playing with fire, believing your silence means safety, you don't explode. You exit, you leave quietly, but the impact of your absence roars louder than your presence ever did. You were the blessing they didn't recognize, and when you're gone, everything crumbles. It's like the story of Samuel and Saul. God told Samuel to anoint Saul as king, and for a time Saul had favor. But when Saul continuously disobeyed and disrespected the divine order, Samuel waited. He gave him time. He gave him warnings. But eventually, God said, "Enough." And Samuel, grieving, turned away. Saul begged him to stay, but Samuel knew. The grace had lifted. The patience had expired. 1 Samuel 15:35 says, "Until the day Samuel died, he did not go to see Saul again, though Samuel mourned for him." Chosen one, you've had to do the same. To mourn people you once prayed for. To walk away from those you hoped would change. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you heard heaven say, "Enough." And when heaven says enough, your spirit obeys. You may feel guilt when you finally make that move, but understand this: your silence gave them time, your stillness gave them space, your grace gave them chances, but they played with it. And now it's judgment by alignment. When you pull back, it's not punishment, it's prophecy unfolding. Look at Keanu Reeves, a man who has endured profound loss and betrayal in his life, yet never moved from bitterness. Instead, he became a quiet storm, kind, unshaken, unprovoked until necessary. He's known for his patience, his humility, and his peace. But behind that peace is immense power. People respect him not because he demands it, but because his spirit commands it. He moves when it's time, and when he does, the world pays attention. That's the kind of authority you carry. So, chosen one, don't ever let someone make you feel guilty for waiting. Your waiting has purpose, your patience has weight, and when it's time to speak, to move, to act, you will do so not in chaos, but in clarity, not in panic, but in power. Romans 12:19 reminds us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." That's what you're doing, leaving room, giving space. Not because you're weak, but because you know heaven fights for you, and when it fights, it never misses. So let them think they're getting away with it. Let them believe your silence is their shield. You know better. You know the difference between peace and passivity. You know the difference between surrender and strategy. And you know exactly when the clock runs out. Because your patience, chosen one, was never endless. It was always prophetic. It was always precise. And it was always on purpose. 3. When they snap, it's a divine judgment, not just anger. Have you ever wondered why people fear your silence more than your words? Why they begin to act nervous the moment your expression changes, even before you've said a single thing? Have you noticed how the entire atmosphere shifts when your calm finally breaks? What if I told you that when a chosen one snaps, it's not just a human reaction, it's heaven responding? Chosen one, your nature isn't impulsive. You don't lash out at trivial things. You've endured much in silence, not because you didn't feel pain, but because you've been trained by the Spirit to wait. Your anger isn't like everyone else's. When it finally rises, it's not rooted in ego, it's rooted in righteousness. And when you break your silence, what comes out of your mouth isn't just emotion, it's revelation, it's judgment, it's divine fire cloaked in words. But why is that? Why is your anger so different? Why does it leave people speechless, convicted, or even shattered? Because your soul is a temple for truth. When people mock your grace, deceive you intentionally, or violate your spiritual boundaries repeatedly, they are not just harming a person, they are provoking a force that is ancient, sacred, and divine. They are tugging on a cord tied directly to heaven, and when they pull too hard, heaven responds through you. Hebrews 4:12 says, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." That verse isn't just for the pulpit. It becomes embodied in you when you're moved by the Spirit. When you speak after being pushed too far, your words cut not from cruelty, but from clarity, and they go straight to the root, where falsehood hides and darkness festers. Have you ever said something in a moment of righteous fury and the room went silent, as if the air itself had been rearranged? That wasn't just a powerful statement, it was a spiritual strike. And what's more frightening to the ones who hurt you is that deep down, they know. They know they triggered something bigger than just your temper. They felt truth itself rise and respond. Most people expect rage to be loud, explosive, chaotic, but your anger, chosen one, is calculated, it's aligned. It doesn't just aim to express, it aims to expose. Your wrath isn't vindictive, it's a mirror. You don't yell to control, you speak to reveal. And what you reveal cannot be unseen. Think about the prophet Jeremiah. Often called the weeping prophet, Jeremiah endured years of rejection, mockery, and emotional exhaustion while delivering unpopular truths. He didn't want to explode. But when he did, it wasn't rage. It was fire shut up in his bones. Jeremiah 29. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. You know that feeling, don't you? the trembling in your chest, the divine energy pushing against your ribs. You try to stay calm, you try to extend grace, but suddenly something rises, not from anger, but from truth. And when you finally let it out, it's not you speaking anymore, it's God through you. Have you ever seen someone's face change after you finally confronted them, not because you cursed, but because you named what they thought was hidden? That's not an outburst, that's judgment, that's prophetic confrontation, that's the force of light pressing against darkness until it cracks. Why do your words stay with people for years after a single moment? Why do they say, "I still remember what you said that day," even when you've forgotten it yourself? Because your words in those moments are etched with divine timing. They don't just come from your mind, they come from the Spirit. John 16:13 says, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth, and He will tell you what is yet to come." Your speech carries foresight. It calls people out, but also calls them forward. It hurts, but it heals. It wounds, but it wakes them up. Look at Malcolm X. He wasn't angry for the sake of being angry. He spoke with a thunderous precision that unnerved those who wanted to remain comfortable in their lies. His speeches weren't just activism, they were declarations. When he spoke, it was as if heaven's megaphone had been dropped onto earth. You feel that same fire, don't you? You felt it growing quietly inside you, waiting, and when it comes out, it doesn't need volume to have impact. It carries power simply because it's real. But let's pause here. Ask yourself this: why is it that people only understand your value after they provoke your anger? Why does it take the storm for them to recognize the peace you carried before it? Could it be that your wrath is the only language some souls understand? When people repeatedly disrespect your grace, it's not just bad behavior, it's a spiritual offense. They are tempting something they don't understand. And you, chosen one, are not reacting from pain, you're reflecting divine alignment. You've become the mouthpiece of what they refuse to listen to in whispers. So now the thunder has arrived. Take a look at Serena Williams. For years she faced racial slurs, sexist commentary, and bias that would have broken most people. And still, she held her ground. She kept her composure. But the few times she did speak out, the entire world paused. She wasn't just defending herself, she was correcting an injustice. Her authority didn't come from rage, it came from divine confidence. And when she expressed her truth, even her critics had to acknowledge its power. This is exactly how you operate. Not frequently, not emotionally, but prophetically. You don't go looking for fights, but when God authorizes your voice, hell trembles. People are not used to confrontation with love, but that's exactly what you offer. Your words are not knives, they are surgical instruments. They don't destroy, they reveal. And in doing so, they force people to choose. Will they repent or will they retreat? This is why your presence is so unsettling, not because you try to be intimidating, but because your spirit carries accountability. You are a reminder of who they should have been. And when you speak from that place, not of ego, but of conviction, your voice sounds like thunder in the bones of those living in lies. Isaiah 30:30 declares, "The Lord will cause people to hear His majestic voice and will make them see His arm coming down with raging anger and consuming fire." That's the kind of fire you carry. It's not chaotic, it's clean, it's not messy, it's measured. And when it lands, it brings clarity to confusion, justice to deception, and truth to places that have never known it. Let's reflect on another truth. Why are you so drained after moments like this? Why does your body feel like it's been through battle after your voice rises like that? Because it's not just emotional exertion, it's spiritual transmission. You just carried divine justice through your vocal cords. You released what others could not, and you became the channel for what heaven needed to say. That's why you must not be ashamed of your snap. It wasn't a mistake. It was a moment of mission. Princess Diana, though known for grace and humility, had moments where she finally spoke out against the institutions that tried to shape her. And those moments weren't petty, they were seismic. The ripple effects of her honesty shattered illusions people had clung to for years. She didn't speak to destroy, she spoke to illuminate, and what she illuminated could never return to darkness. Like her, chosen one, you are both tender and terrifying, because you were born to tell the truth in a world built on lies. So don't doubt your voice, don't apologize for it. When you are provoked into divine alignment, your words become weapons of light. You don't fight with fists, you fight with truth, and truth always wins. Romans 2:6 says, God will repay each person according to what they have done. When you speak in divine judgment, you're not replacing God's justice, you're delivering the first wave of it. You are the warning, the verdict, the spiritual alarm bell that tells them grace is lifting and consequence is near. So, chosen one, the next time you feel the fire rise, ask yourself, is this ego or is this divine assignment? Because when you speak from that place, not rage but righteousness, you don't just shake people, you awaken them. You judge not from bitterness but from balance, and your voice becomes unforgettable, not because it was loud, but because it was true, because it was God. And when God speaks through you, nothing in the room, nothing in the soul will ever be the same again. 4. They are natural protectors, including of themselves. Have you ever noticed how people instinctively feel safer around you? How children cling to you without hesitation? How strangers confide in you as if they've known you forever? How friends call you in moments of crisis? Not just for advice, but because your presence alone seems to shield them from the chaos. Have you ever asked yourself why you're always the one standing in the gap, the one offering comfort, defense, and wisdom, even when no one asked you to? It's not coincidence, it's calling. You, chosen one, were born to protect. From the beginning, your spirit has been a fortress, strong yet quiet, gentle yet immovable. You are a spiritual warrior in disguise. People don't always see the fire within you at first glance, but they feel it. They may not understand the depth of your discernment, but they trust it. They don't always realize why they feel safe, but they do. That's because your soul is tuned to the frequency of divine defense. You were chosen not just to survive, but to shield. Not just to heal, but to guard. Not just to uplift others, but to know when and how to protect yourself too. And here's what most people forget. The sword you carry isn't only for the world, it's for you too. You don't just protect the weak, you protect your own light. You don't just step in when others are attacked. You step away when your own boundaries are violated. You don't scream, threaten, or seek vengeance. You simply withdraw, with no bitterness, only clarity. And that withdrawal is not weakness, it is spiritual hygiene, it's sacred discipline. Because when your peace is compromised, your calling is at risk. And you weren't sent here to entertain disrespect. You were sent here to execute purpose. Psalm 18:2 declares, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold." That same protective energy flows through you, chosen one. When people are in your presence, they're not just near a person, they're near a covering, a spiritual shield. You absorb chaos so others don't have to. You sense danger before it arrives, and sometimes you see attacks coming that haven't even been launched yet. That's the level of spiritual alertness you carry. But that gift comes with responsibility, and part of that responsibility is protecting yourself just as fiercely as you protect others. Have you ever been in a relationship, romantic, platonic, or even familial, where you knew your energy was being drained, but you stayed anyway, hoping your love would be enough, hoping your presence would fix it. And then, one day, without warning, something in you snapped, not out of anger but out of clarity. That wasn't emotional exhaustion. That was your inner protector rising up. That was your soul saying, enough. You may have walked away quietly. No drama, no explanation. But the moment you left, the atmosphere shifted. That's what happens when a chosen one enforces their boundaries. You don't explain your exit. You don't justify your silence. You don't beg to be understood. Because the same power that makes you a defender of others is the same power that allows you to disappear when your sacred space is violated. And make no mistake, you know how to disappear without a trace. You don't block out of spite. You disconnect out of necessity. You don't cut ties to punish. You release ties to purify. Consider the life of Maya Moore, one of the greatest basketball players of her generation. At the peak of her career, she stepped away from the WNBA, not for injury, not for fame, but to fight for the release of a wrongfully imprisoned man. She saw injustice, and her protective nature took over. She used her influence, her time, and her voice to shield someone who had no platform. That's the protector's spirit in action. But what's equally powerful, she protected herself from the temptation of worldly success. She honored her values above applause. That's what you do, chosen one. You may be in the world, but you are not of it. You will leave anything, no matter how big, if it conflicts with your calling. People often confuse your compassion for naivety. They assume that because you love deeply, you'll tolerate endlessly. But they're wrong. You are kind, not weak. You are forgiving, not blind. And the moment your spirit senses a pattern of disrespect, especially one that tries to slowly unravel your alignment, you act. Not emotionally, but spiritually. Not impulsively, but prophetically. Look at Nehemiah. When rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem, he faced mocking, threats, and sabotage. But he didn't react with fear. He posted guards. He armed the builders. He said in Nehemiah 4:14, "Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." That's the kind of spiritual instinct you carry. You don't just pray, you protect. You don't just build, you defend what's sacred while doing so. And when necessary, you draw a hard line, even if that line costs you company. Why is it that people often remember you only after you leave? Why is your absence more felt than your presence was appreciated? Because your protection was invisible until it was gone. They didn't realize how much darkness your light was holding back. But the moment you left, the shadows crept in. That's when they saw who you truly were. Not just a kind soul, but a spiritual warrior. Another example is Naomi Osaka. In the middle of her rising tennis stardom, she made the decision to step back from major tournaments, citing mental health. Many criticized her, but what she was really doing was choosing spiritual hygiene over public pressure. She knew her peace mattered more than applause, and that's the level of self-protection that only those deeply rooted in divine purpose can understand. You, chosen one, have likely done the same. Quiet exits, silent goodbyes, not to prove a point, but to preserve your soul. Do you ever find yourself giving and giving until suddenly you don't? Until something in you shifts and you stop responding, stop explaining, stop trying. That's not coldness, that's calibration. That's your internal protector overriding your external people pleaser. And when that moment comes, you don't look back, because you know your peace is holy and protecting it is obedience. Isaiah 54:17 assures us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you." But part of that divine protection is also your discernment. The Spirit doesn't just fight for you, it warns you, it urges you. It says, This environment is no longer safe. And when you obey that nudge, even when it hurts, you are aligning with your highest calling. You are not built to carry toxic energies. Your soul is wired for clarity, truth, peace, and mission. So when something disturbs your flow, when someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, you don't react with rage. You remove yourself with resolve. Your cutoff is clean, final, holy. Think about Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers, a man known for his kindness, his gentleness, and his unwavering calm. But what most people don't know is that he was also fiercely protective of children, of innocence, of truth. Behind the soft demeanor was a man who stood boldly for values, who challenged censorship, who defended those without a voice. And while he never raised his voice, his presence shifted policy. You don't have to be loud to be lethal. You don't have to scream to be heard. Like him, your strength is quiet, but immovable. So, chosen one, don't let anyone guilt you for protecting your peace. Don't let them shame you for cutting off access when your spirit says enough. You weren't made to bleed endlessly for people who feed off your energy. You were made to protect the path, to hold the gate, to shield the sacred. 5. Their rage isn't loud, it's annihilating. Have you ever seen someone vanish from your life so quietly, so completely, that their absence made more noise than their presence ever did? Have you ever wondered why everything around you suddenly began to collapse after that person left? Relationships, peace, even your own sense of balance. What if I told you that when a chosen one walks away, it isn't just a decision, it's a divine detonation? You see, chosen one, your rage doesn't look like the world's rage. It isn't explosive, it's annihilating. You don't waste time yelling. You don't throw tantrums to prove your point. You don't fight for understanding from people determined to misunderstand you. Instead, you withdraw, calmly, completely, with holy precision. And that withdrawal becomes the most thunderous judgment of all. Because while others scream to be heard, you simply leave, and let the consequences speak louder than words ever could. Have you ever asked yourself why people often come running back, not while you're present, but only after you're gone? Why do they suddenly recognize your worth when the silence you leave behind begins to suffocate them? That's because your presence was never just company, it was spiritual order. Your energy carried peace, clarity, and alignment. It shielded them from the very chaos they now have to face alone. When you leave, they don't just miss you, they unravel. Lamentations 3:26 reminds us, "It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." You've mastered that truth. You don't retaliate. You don't justify. You don't seek revenge. You simply step aside, and in doing so, you allow life, karma, and the divine to reveal what your words never needed to say. Your silence is not absence. It is divine presence stepping back and letting the spiritual laws of the universe do their work. Have you ever been so hurt that even you were surprised by how silent you became? So betrayed that something ancient inside you decided not to fight, but to vanish? That's not emotional shutdown, that's prophetic clarity. When your soul knows the line has been crossed, you don't just react, you evacuate. And that evacuation leaves a vacuum so loud, it echoes like thunder in the soul of those who mistreated you. Let's talk about the story of Elijah. After confronting the prophets of Baal and performing miracles before the people, Elijah didn't stay to argue or gloat. When his life was threatened, he retreated into the wilderness. Not in fear, but in alignment. In 1 Kings 19, it was in the silence, not in the fire or earthquake, that God revealed himself. After the fire came a gentle whisper. That's how your rage moves. Not like fire, not like earthquakes, but like the whisper that follows, changing the atmosphere without a sound. You don't curse people. You become unavailable to them. You don't scream for revenge. You become unreachable. And the silence you leave behind begins to do what your voice never could. It reveals the void you once filled. Why do people underestimate quiet rage? Because they think only volume carries power. But you, chosen one, know the truth. Withdrawal is a spiritual weapon. And when you choose to no longer show up, emotionally, energetically, or physically, you remove the divine order you once carried into their lives. That's not vengeance, that's consequence. Consider Dave Chappelle. At the height of his career, he walked away from a $50 million contract, not with bitterness, not with public outrage, but with silence. The world was stunned. Executives didn't understand. Critics speculated. But Chappelle's departure became more powerful than any words he could have spoken. He didn't have to defend himself. His absence did that for him. And when he eventually returned, it was on his terms, his time, his truth. That's how the rage of a chosen one works. It doesn't explode. It rearranges reality. So ask yourself, how many times have you been painted as cold or heartless because you left without explanation? How many times have people told you you just disappeared, or I didn't even know you were upset? That's because they never took the time to sense the quiet warnings before your spirit left the room. They ignored the signs. They took your peace for granted. They assumed your silence was passive, not knowing it was the sound of a sword being sheathed for the last time. Romans 12:19 speaks directly to your strategy. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. That's your power. You leave room, not because you can't destroy, but because you know what happens when you do. You know the magnitude of your energy. You understand that your voice is backed by heaven, so you use it with care. And when it's no longer time to speak, you let your exit do the rest. There's a legend that Bruce Lee, the martial arts master, once said, "The loudest one in the room is the weakest." That principle holds true in your spirit. You don't need to broadcast your hurt. You don't need to explain your silence. You just need to be gone. And once you're gone, they realize they were never really prepared for life without your protection, your light, your covering. And what happens then? Their world begins to fall apart. Not because you cursed them, but because you stopped blessing them. Your prayers stop covering them. Your wisdom stops guiding them. Your presence, which once brought peace to their chaos, is no longer accessible. And suddenly, everything they tried to control collapses. Have you noticed that people start saying, "You've changed," when you finally set boundaries? When you stop explaining yourself? That's not change, that's evolution. That's what happens when your spirit is done warning, done waiting, done negotiating. You don't retaliate, you recalibrate. You shift into higher alignment, and anything not aligned is left behind. Look at Anthony Bourdain. He traveled the world not just as a chef, but as a spiritual observer. He entered places with humility, offering peace and presence to cultures often ignored. He didn't force his voice. He let his silence speak. But when he exited this world, the absence he left was devastating. People didn't realize how much his quiet presence anchored them until it was no longer there. The void told the truth the presence had concealed. So, chosen one, don't second-guess the power of your silence. Don't let anyone tell you you're being passive when you choose to retreat. Your withdrawal is not weakness, it's divine alignment. It's the Spirit saying, "You've done enough." And when the Spirit says that, you don't explain, you move. Isaiah 30:15 affirms this nature. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. Your strength isn't in shouting, it's in knowing. It's in sensing the divine moment when your presence is no longer medicine, but enabling. And when that moment comes, you don't just step back, You erase your imprint. You cleanse your space. You protect your purpose. Because here's the truth. Your presence carries divine order, and when people mishandle it, they don't just lose you, they lose the stability their life borrowed from your peace. That's the cost of mishandling a chosen one. And your rage. It doesn't need to roar, it just needs to leave, and in leaving, it reveals everything. 6. Their intuition is weaponized by truth. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt like they saw more of you than you've ever shown? Have you ever tried to hide a feeling, a lie, a small crack in your truth, and someone called it out without accusation, without effort, just presence? That's what happens when a chosen one walks into the room. You don't speak with the loudest voice, chosen one, but your presence speaks volumes. And what it says, without needing words, is, I see you. You don't just have intuition. Yours is a divine instrument, forged in fire and tempered in the silence of suffering. You've been through too much not to see. You've been betrayed too many times not to recognize energy shifts. You've been surrounded by masks for too long not to know what a lie feels like. While others are still trying to read facial expressions, you've already scanned their soul. Before someone opens their mouth, you've already felt their vibration. And if they try to deceive you, they trigger something ancient inside you, something divine, something sharp. This is why people often feel nervous around you, even if you haven't said a thing. Why do strangers feel exposed in your presence? Why do some people avoid eye contact while others cling to you like a life raft? Because whether they know it or not, your intuition is reading the room, scanning the soul, and locating every unspoken truth they've tried to bury. You were not created to be fooled. You were designed to perceive. Your discernment isn't a personality trait. It's a spiritual weapon. It's not reactive. It's revelatory. When someone lies to you, they aren't just lying to a person. They're lying in front of a mirror held up by God. And mirrors don't argue. They just reveal. Proverbs 20:27 says, "The spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all his innermost parts." That's what's happening when you look at someone, when you sit in silence and still know exactly what's going on. Your spirit becomes the lamp. And under that light, the masks start to melt. The illusions begin to crumble. Not because you're trying to expose, but because truth flows through you, whether you speak or not. Have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't prove someone was lying, but your spirit screamed at you, and later you were right? Have you ever stayed quiet in a conversation, letting someone talk circles, all while you could feel their real motive pulsing underneath every word? That's not paranoia. That's your spiritual radar, and it's terrifying to those who thrive in deception because they can manipulate others, but they can't manipulate you. Look at the story of Jesus and the woman at the well in John 4. He asked her for a drink, and in the course of the conversation, gently revealed not just her past, but her pain. You have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. He didn't shame her. He saw her. That's the energy you carry, chosen one. You don't weaponize truth to humiliate. You wield it to liberate, and people either lean in to heal or run away in fear. So why do toxic people fear you? Why do manipulators avoid you? Why do narcissists eventually turn on you? Because your energy is a threat to their illusion. Your eyes pierce straight through the false confidence, the curated smiles, the polished masks. You make people face parts of themselves they've worked hard to avoid. You are not aggressive, but your presence is confrontational, because it's hard to lie to someone who has already seen the truth. Look at Frida Kahlo. Her art wasn't just beautiful, it was brutally honest. Her paintings exposed pain, betrayal, identity and longing in ways that left no place to hide. She didn't paint pretty pictures. She painted emotional X-rays. And that's what you do, chosen one. Whether through your words, your silence, your creativity, or your insight, you reveal what's underneath. And while many admire that power from a distance, few can withstand it up close. You've probably been told you're too intense or you read too much into things. But what they're really saying is you see too much. And seeing too much is dangerous in a world built on lies. You've likely had people turn on you, not because you hurt them, but because your presence made them confront who they were pretending to be. You didn't attack, you didn't accuse, but just by being you, the light in your soul made their shadows scream. John 16:13 says, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth, and He will tell you what is yet to come." The Spirit of truth is in you. That's why your knowing doesn't always come from observation. It comes from revelation. You don't just read what's present. You often sense what's coming. You don't just know what they said. You know what they meant, what they feared, what they hoped you wouldn't catch. But you did. You always do. And when the time is right, when you've been pushed too far, or silence would now be betrayal, you don't fight with fists, you fight with truth. You speak one sentence, maybe two, calm, measured, and their entire illusion shatters. Not because you insulted them, but because you named the very thing they were running from. You hit the nerve only God could have shown you. Nelson Mandela once said, "When you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. But light also exposes, and exposure hurts. That's why many who need you most are the ones who fight you hardest." They're not fighting your personality, they're fighting their reflection in your truth. But don't let that stop you, chosen one. Don't question your gift. Your insight is not a curse, it's a calling. You weren't sent here to be fooled. You were sent here to break spells, to dismantle falsehood, to unmask the lies people use, to shield their shame. And though you do it gently, you do it surgically, with a few words, a knowing glance, or sometimes just your silence. You hold up truth like a mirror, and the mirror doesn't flinch. Hebrews 5:14 says, "But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil." That's what you've done. You've trained in darkness. Your gift didn't come cheap. It was earned through betrayal, abandonment, isolation. You know what evil feels like because it sat across from you and smiled. You don't guess. You discern. You don't assume. You know. So don't tone it down to make others comfortable. Don't soften your insight just to keep the peace. You were made to see what others miss, and to speak when no one else dares. Your intuition isn't mood, it's ministry. Your truth isn't opinion, it's divine ordination. And when you finally choose to speak that truth, when you pierce through the lies with the light God placed inside you, you don't just expose someone, you liberate them. You offer a path back to their real self. And even if they reject it, even if they run from it, they'll never forget it. Because once truth touches the soul, it never leaves quietly. 7. Their mercy has limits. Have you ever felt the warmth of someone's love so pure, so patient, so unwavering that it almost didn't make sense? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes after you hurt them, and instead of judgment, you found grace? That's the kind of mercy chosen ones carry. It's not performative, it's not conditional, it's divine. But here's the truth people often forget. Even divine mercy has a limit. Chosen one, your forgiveness doesn't come from naivety. It comes from God. You don't turn the other cheek because you're blind. You do it because you believe in redemption. You understand that people are on spiritual journeys, that healing takes time, that mistakes happen. You pray for the ones who hurt you. You stand beside those who fell. You cover the people who don't even know they're being covered. You offer what most won't: time, patience, space to grow. But you're not infinite. Your compassion is vast, but not without borders. Your grace is generous, but not without discernment. And when that spiritual line is crossed, when your mercy is taken for granted, when your soul is stretched past its sacred limits, something changes inside of you. You stop interceding, not out of hate, not out of revenge, but because heaven told you it's time to let go. Have you ever kept forgiving someone, hoping this would be the time they finally saw your heart, only to be met with the same betrayal again and again? Have you ever watched someone ignore every truth, dismiss every chance, and keep walking deeper into darkness while you stood praying, pleading, waiting, and then, one day, silence? That silence wasn't emptiness. It was divine instruction. It was God saying, "You've done enough." Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." Even mercy has a season, and when that season ends, it's not bitterness, it's obedience. You don't stop loving them, you stop shielding them, because continuing to protect what refuses to heal is no longer mercy. It becomes interference with divine justice. Look at the story of King Saul and the prophet Samuel. Saul disobeyed God repeatedly, despite being given opportunity after opportunity to repent. Samuel grieved for him. He wept, he mourned. But eventually, God told Samuel to stop. In 1 Samuel 16:1, God said, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel?" Samuel had to let go, not because he didn't care, but because the season of intercession had ended. That's what happens to you, chosen one. You carry people for as long as you can, but when God says release, you obey, even through tears. Why do people only recognize the weight of your mercy after you withdraw it? Why does your absence bring more clarity than all your years of presence? Because until you pull your covering away, they never realize it was there. They didn't know how many spiritual battles you were blocking, how many storms you were softening, how much of their chaos was absorbed by your grace. But once you step back, the full force of their choices arrives. Look at the life of Martin Luther King Jr., a man of unmatched compassion and deep spiritual love. He preached forgiveness, nonviolence, and reconciliation. But there came a time when even he shifted. Toward the end of his life, his message sharpened. He started speaking more directly about the cost of ignored truth, the consequences of silent injustice. He didn't stop loving the world. He stopped shielding it, and his voice, once gentle, became thunderous. Not in volume, but in weight. That's the same shift that happens in you. You go from gentle to just, from covering to clearing. Your prayers, chosen one, are powerful. Your mercy creates windows for healing that most never deserved. But you've learned, some people don't want to be healed. They want to be enabled. And when your spirit finally discerns that difference, your grace is no longer a safe place for them. It becomes a line they cannot cross again. Matthew 7:6 offers a tough truth. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. This is not about judgment. It's about wisdom. You are sacred. Your compassion is sacred. And there comes a time when mercy, unchecked, becomes self-abandonment. You were never meant to pour endlessly into vessels that leak on purpose. You were never meant to intercede for people who curse your name while receiving your blessings. Have you ever felt the moment when your spirit said, "Enough"? When the very prayers you used to cry stopped rising from your lips, not because you lost hope, but because God shifted your assignment. That moment is holy. It's painful, but it's necessary. Because if you keep shielding someone from the consequences of their actions, you're no longer saving them. you're saving them from God's lesson. Think about poet and activist Audre Lorde. Known for her fierce compassion and unwavering clarity, she once said, "I am deliberate and afraid of nothing." Her activism was rooted in love, but it was also unshakable. She didn't tolerate excuses. She offered truth like a sword wrapped in velvet. And when she saw that mercy had been exhausted, she shifted into fire. You embody that same duality. You will cry for someone, but you will also let them go. You will pray for them, but you won't chase them once heaven says, release. Romans 2:4 says, "Do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, forbearance and patience, not realizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance?" But when kindness is abused, when grace becomes routine, the Spirit moves. And when you move with it, chosen one, people are left stunned. They thought your compassion was endless. They thought they could keep dancing on the edge of your forgiveness without falling. But eventually, divine law catches up. And when it does, your absence becomes judgment, your silence becomes weight, your withdrawal becomes thunder, because they weren't just dealing with a kind person, they were dealing with a soul sent from above. And the mercy that once covered them now testifies against them. You may not always see the aftermath, but trust, when your grace lifts, things begin to shake. The very peace they mocked is the peace they'll now miss. The very prayers they ignored are now the ones they'll beg for. But by then, you've moved on, not in hate, but in holiness. So, chosen one, don't ever feel guilty for stopping. Don't grieve forever for letting go. Your mercy was a gift, and when it's done in divine timing. You gave space, you gave prayers, you gave love, and now you give the situation back to God. Because where your mercy ends, His justice begins, and no one walks away from that unchanged. 8. Their energy shifts the atmosphere. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly sensed that something shifted, though no one said a word? Have you ever noticed how people seem to sit up straighter, speak softer, or even fall quiet the moment you enter? Maybe they don't even know why, but you do. That's because, chosen one, your presence doesn't just participate, it dominates. You're not just present in a space, you change it. Your energy, refined by divine fire, doesn't whisper, it resonates. While others walk in unnoticed, you walk in like a storm wrapped in stillness. And people feel it. They might not understand it, might not be able to put it into words, but their spirit knows. Something holy just walked in, something ancient, something not of this world. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to shift the atmosphere. Why do people say things like, "I feel calmer when you're here," or "something about you is just different"? Why do even the most chaotic environments seem to find a rhythm when you show up? Because you carry divine frequency. Your soul is a tuning fork for the supernatural. The moment you step into a space, every spirit in the room has to reckon with yours. Some align, others resist, but none remain unchanged. Isaiah 60:1 says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That glory isn't just metaphorical, it's tangible. It follows you, and even if you don't see it, others feel it. That's why babies stare at you, animals approach you, strangers spill their stories to you. Your spirit creates a field of truth around you, and anything false trembles in its presence. Have you noticed how people often act differently when you're around? Some get inspired, some get intimidated, some can't stop talking, while others fall silent. Some suddenly get angry, and they don't even know why. That's because your spirit is a mirror. And when people stand in front of a mirror, they can't help but see themselves. For those living in truth, your presence feels like home. But for those wearing masks, it feels like exposure. Look at the story of Jesus calming the storm in Mark 4:39. With one word, peace, he calmed the winds and waves. But before he spoke to the storm outside, he carried the storm-calming authority within. You carry that same energy. When your soul is aligned, your presence brings peace to tension, light to darkness, calm to chaos. And when you're unsettled, the room feels it. Conversations shift, eyes dart, the energy thickens, and no one quite knows why, but you do. Have you ever sat in silence and suddenly everyone else in the room began to fidget, to overtalk, to change subjects? That's because your silence is loud. Your spirit speaks even when your mouth is closed. You don't have to say, something's wrong. Your energy already has. Think about Bob Marley. His music didn't just entertain, it healed. People didn't gather around him just for rhythm, they gathered for resonance. He brought messages of peace, spirit, revolution, and alignment. His voice shifted the emotional tone of entire stadiums. That's not charisma, that's calling. That's what you carry, chosen one. You don't sing to impress, you exist to uplift. And when you're in alignment, even the ground beneath your feet feels different. But here's what most people miss. This influence goes both ways. When you're at peace, you elevate others. But when you're disturbed, when your spirit is provoked, the air gets heavy. People don't even know what's wrong, but they know something is. Laughter stalls, joy dims, energy collapses. It's not mood, it's magnetism. You are so spiritually attuned that your imbalance sends ripples through the atmosphere. Romans 8:19 says, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." The atmosphere knows who you are. Creation responds to you. That's why even the weather sometimes shifts with your emotions. That's why you can walk into a space and feel the energy before anything is said. You were designed not just to move through the world, but to transform it as you pass. Have you ever left a room and then heard later, after you left, everything fell apart? That's because your energy was the glue. People didn't realize how much light you were anchoring. But when that light walked out, the shadows took over. You didn't need to say goodbye. Your absence spoke volumes. Look at Maya Moore again, not as an athlete, but as a spiritual catalyst. When she stepped away from basketball to free an innocent man, her choice shifted more than headlines. It shifted the justice system. Her presence in a courtroom brought credibility, clarity, and divine pressure. That's what you do. You don't speak to be heard. You exist to realign. But be careful, chosen one, because the more powerful your energy becomes, the more sensitive you become to what surrounds you. You can't stay in toxic spaces long. You can't fake laughter around deceit. You can't ignore the weight of fake smiles. Your spirit will sound alarms, and when it does, you must listen. Because staying where you no longer resonate will begin to dull your shine, and that is spiritual disobedience. Ephesians 5:8 says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light." You don't just carry light, you are light, and darkness can't hide in your presence. That's why some people avoid you. That's why they get defensive before you even open your mouth, because their spirit feels your light, and it knows its time is running out. Why do people often say, "You make me want to be better"? Why do complete strangers suddenly confess things to you they haven't told anyone else? Because you're a walking invitation to ascend, to shift, to awaken. You're not confrontational, but your energy calls people out, not harshly, not with judgment, but with presence that whispers, "I see you. I know what you're pretending not to feel, and you're safe to stop pretending here." One more example. Look at Chadwick Boseman. He didn't need to perform for attention. His presence alone shifted the atmosphere. People would go quiet when he walked in, not because of fame, but because of frequency. Even while battling illness, his alignment with purpose was so deep, so pure, that others felt it. He never raised his voice to be powerful. His soul was already speaking. You carry that same energy, chosen one, so protect it, guard it. Don't dim it to fit in spaces not worthy of your resonance. Don't settle for environments that suffocate your glow. When the room is off, check your alignment. But if you're clear and it still feels wrong, leave. The problem is the room, not the light. And remember, your silence is not empty. It is thunder in disguise. When you walk into a space, things realign. When you walk out, things collapse. That's not drama. That's spiritual reality. Because you're not just a person, you're a living frequency of divine truth. To you, dear chosen one, this message is your sacred reminder. Your niceness is not a flaw. Your grace is not naivety. You are not too much. You are not too intense. You are a force wrapped in flesh, with a frequency that echoes the voice of God Himself. Your ability to show compassion, to forgive, to protect, to wait, to perceive, to walk away, to stay silent, none of it is weakness. It is power at rest. You are powerful beyond measure, and your restraint is not because you cannot destroy, but because you were sent to heal. Never let this world convince you otherwise. To every soul who has journeyed through this message with us, thank you. Your time, your energy, your presence here is felt and honored. And to every beautiful heart who has supported this channel through super thanks, please know that your generosity helps sustain this sacred work. Whether you've donated or not, your presence here already means more than you know. We are deeply, genuinely grateful for you. You are part of a global movement of awakening, of remembrance, of divine alignment, and your very act of watching, commenting, and sharing is helping this message reach others who need it just as much as you did. If this word found you at just the right time, if your spirit stirred and your soul whispered, "This was for me," then type 1111 in the comments right now. Let it be a divine agreement, a signal to the universe that you're awake, you're aligned, and you're ready for what comes next. May your path be guided by clarity. May your boundaries be protected by wisdom. May your silence speak louder than your words, and your presence continue to shift every space you walk into. You are not just loved, you're ordained. May blessings overflow into your life in ways that shock even your faith. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being. Until next time, walk in light, but never forget the fire you carry.